second, make sure this thing's actually started. Okay, is it started? It should be going right now. Okay. My last video was a day in a boat. Yeah. And I asked a question in there, so I read the comments. And usually I don't read the comments because oh, anyway, I'm going to respond to the comments now because I don't feel like typing in all these responses. Okay, first, let's just get this out of the way. For everyone who's informed me that I'm an idiot, here, let me give you a little tip. When you're calling someone an idiot or stupid or whatever form of the thing you want to take, when you're calling someone an idiot, it's better to not follow that up by saying something really stupid, because then it just comes off as just disingenuous. Anyway, I asked about, oh, you're funny. Okay, I'm not reading comments right now. Hold on, I'm answering the thing. But hello, Space Jew and Mr. Landfill, and yeah, okay. I asked a question about long-term storage food, and a few people answered that, like actually answered. Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, I'm looking into what you guys said. Thank you for the responses. That's great. Okay, so there were a lot of comments about a speedometer. Now, try to keep in mind, this is a pretty small boat, and the point of using my hand as a speedometer, where I could put my finger in the water and see how high it splashes up my arm, the point of that is that then I don't have to bring anything with me. So I don't want to have to bring like a rope with a bunch of knots or a car speedometer with a propeller and all this extra stuff, right? Oh, it's not that much stuff, Jaimie. No, it's a pretty small boat. I don't want to bring any extra stuff. But if I can get an idea of how high the water splashes just on my hand, great. I don't need a perfect speedometer on this boat. If I can just get a rough idea, that's perfect. And my hands are with me all the time anyway. Although someone has also informed me recently that I'm going to cut them off. The weird thing is, it was when I was doing a pretty safe thing, because I do way more dangerous things than that. But anyway, okay. So yeah, I don't want to bring extra stuff onto the boat for a speedometer. The one thing I was considering was like a stick with some lines on it that I could put in the water. But even that, I'd rather just get a rough idea, sticking my hand in the water. Okay, here's a simple one. Someone was upset that my battery was all the way at the front of the boat and the motor was all the way at the back of the boat. And that meant so much energy was getting lost with the electricity going through these huge long wires. It's not that big a boat. It's not that long a distance. And also I use pretty fat wires, and it's also not that much power. It's 50 amps max. Like, that's if I'm not getting any energy from the solar panels and I'm just running directly off the battery. I mean, the solar panels that are charging the battery, but the other two solar panels. So 50 amps max. And I think I've got the boat more efficient now, so it's actually under 50 amps, but I'll have to check that. But I use pretty fat wires, and the real simple answer to this is, where the hell else am I going to put the battery? There isn't anywhere else to put it. It's not that big a boat. It's a skinny boat. It's got the pontoons out on the side. Nothing's going in those. Those are just little. They're just enough to keep the boat stable. In the back is the motor, and then there's no space to put the battery back there. Basically, putting it in the front was the only place to put it without building some new compartment or something. And yeah, I'm using like way oversized wires. I think I'm using like 2 gauge or 1 gauge or something like that. I don't know. The wires are plenty big to handle that much energy. Okay, now a lot of people got quite upset about my solar panel setup. So, I explained it in the video. So basically, I've got 4 solar panels on the roof, right? Oh, and one guy was like, "You need more solar panels." Well, like I've said 6 times already, it's not that big a boat. There's only so much space on this boat. 4 solar panels is enough. And that also just depends on how I'm using the boat. Obviously, if I have more solar panels, I can use the boat differently than if I have fewer. And one reason people got so upset about the solar panels and the energy system in general was that when I started the trip, I started without the batteries fully charged. And people are giving me all these reasons about, your solar system setup isn't right, and you did it all wrong, and you're an idiot. Here's why the the boat was not fully charged when it started. The evening before, I drove the boat around and then parked it at night, so there was no charging. And now someone's going to say, well, plug it into your house. No, I'm not charging anything at night. It's dark. I'm on all solar power. Nothing charges at night. So it doesn't matter if I had 1.5 million solar panels connected to the boat, or if I had, it isn't a giantest charge controller in the universe. It was nighttime. There was no charging. So when I got up in the morning, the boat was not fully charged. So all that stuff is irrelevant. Okay, but a few people are quite upset. It's funny, I don't know, some people totally got it, but some people just were really upset about this. Two of my solar panels out of the 4, so half the solar panels charge the battery. The other half of the solar panels, the other 2 solar panels, go through a switch directly to the motor. And I know people are going to say, no, you should put them all through the motor. Okay, first, that means I have to get a bigger charge controller, which is more expensive. So that's one reason to not do that. Oops. But, I can just spend more and get a bigger charge controller. Fine. However, I was explaining that I like to be, when I'm driving, I like to be able to turn on the solar panel switch and turn off the batteries completely, because then I know that 2 of the solar panels are charging the battery while I'm driving just on the solar panels. So if I'm ever in a situation where I'm not in a hurry and I just want to charge the frickin' batteries, I can just drive on 2 solar panels and charge the batteries, and I don't need to install 47 different dials and things that say how many amps are coming from this, that, and the next thing. Because like I said, a dozen times already, it's not that big a boat. I'm not going to put tons of equipment in that small a boat. It's a small boat, That's also one of the reasons that I chose to make a resistive charge controller, which is something I knew people would be upset about this too, which is kind of silly. It's a $10 charge controller that replaces a $600 charge controller. So that's a huge financial benefit of the charge controller I'm using. Now, the charge controller I'm using does waste some energy in heat, but not as much as people keep thinking. And I did a video about this a few videos ago. It doesn't waste nearly as much power as people seem to think, because one guy was like, when you're driving slow, you're using basically the same amount of power as if you're driving fast, because all the extra energy is just getting wasted in the charge in the charge controller, in the coil. Go back a few videos. It's not anywhere near as bad as you're thinking. It does waste some energy though. What was I going on about here? Oh yeah, so the two solar panels connected directly to the motor, and then 2 connected directly to the battery. People are saying, well, just run everything through the battery. Now, I would charge faster when I'm parked. Although I happen to know that when I park in town, the front of the boat's in shade, so that part of the boat isn't going to charge anyway. And this is also one of the reasons that I did this. But I would have done it anyway. But that is another reason. Whenever I'm parked in town, the front of the boat is in shade, the back of the boat is in the sun. So it wouldn't, I could maybe find another parking spot or whatever. But regardless, when I'm driving, connecting the solar panels directly to the motor is the most efficient way to run the motor from the solar panels. So I keep getting all these comments about I'm not being as efficient as I should be by running everything through the charge controller and the battery. No, going through all that stuff wastes energy. Every piece of electronics you run energy through is going to be not 100% efficient. Oh, I'm so glad you have clothes on right now. So every piece of equipment, electrical equipment you're running electricity through is going to waste some of the energy. Nothing is 100% efficient, unless you're using superconductors, fine. But other than that, so if I'm driving the boat, I'm losing some efficiency from my resistive charge controller if I'm going at a lower speed. but the other two solar panels, I'm getting like as close to 100% efficiency as I can. I'm losing a little bit of energy through the wires and the switch, but almost nothing. That's as efficient as I can get it. Yeah.
What is that?
What is that?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that after. I have my computer open here and it has the video open. Let's see, what else did I want to say about that? Oh yeah, and then the other reason is that, yeah, I mentioned this earlier as well. It's like I can, if I'm, hey, all right, you relax for a minute. If I'm out driving and my batteries have some kind of problem, the electrical system has some kind of issue, I can still run directly off the solar panels and still get home. I like having different systems. And then, you know, various people were like, well, just put a whole bunch of switches so you can switch everything back and forth. It's not that big a boat. I don't want that. I don't want, like, every time I add another switch or another speedometer or another like dial, all this stuff, it adds up. It's not a big boat. I don't want to put a lot of stuff in the boat. Plus, the more stuff I put in the boat, the more stuff can break. Right now, it's a really simple setup, and I really like the simplicity of the setup. And this is also one of the reasons that I really like the speed controller I'm using. It's not as efficient as the $600 speed controller at lower speeds. It's more efficient at higher speeds. At full speed, it is the most efficient thing you can have because it's completely bypassing the speed controller and running direct. But overall, it's a little less efficient. However, there's nothing to break on it. It's just a coil of wire. And I've been in a boat before, a few years ago, when I was driving and my speed controller just died. Luckily, I was like a quarter mile from home. But that could totally happen, like 5 miles, 10 miles from home, and then what? I'm going to paddle the whole way, and yeah, I can paddle the whole way, and it's. But I would rather just have the simple speed controller. Another thing is, this speed controller is something I haven't used before. I like trying different things, and you know, I want to test it for a while and see how it goes. And so far, it's going really well. I'm really happy with it. And sure, driving at lower speeds, I'm wasting a bit of energy. But, okay, so the way I drove to town and back the other day worked out really well with the speed controller. I can't show you that right now. I can show you that after. So I drove to town, partly at low speed and partly just on the solar panels so that the batteries were actually charging. So overall, I charged the batteries on the way to town, and I did a bunch of paddling. You know, just made it into a workout. And then when I left town, the batteries were full, or close to it. They were basically full. And I drove home full speed the whole way until I got about 3/4 of the way home, and then the motor overheated. And I think it might be the connection between the motor and the propeller shaft was a little bit loose and, you know, wiggling and just making a bit of friction. And you know, kind of heated up too much, and it took over an hour for it to get to the point where it was like I started smelling the motor, you know. But I turned it off right away, and you know, ripped off a little piece of my shirt, got it wet, and dabbed it on. And I was dabbing around to see where the hottest spot was, and it was right on the motor shaft where it connects to the propeller shaft. That was really hot right there. So I think it was that connection, which I have since addressed. I made a video about that. I'll put it up. But anyway, in terms of the power system, I drove full speed 3/4 of the way home, maybe even more, and still had plenty of power, like still had plenty of energy to make it all the way home. I just stopped for a while, let the motor cool off, and then drove the rest of the way slow, and then checked everything. Although the motor's fine. I've driven full speed since then. Everything's been fine. I just have to not overheat it. Anyway, so I'm really happy if I can drive to town, kind of slowish. Although in that boat, slow is faster. Slow in that boat is about the maximum speed in my other boat, so it's like still pretty good speed. So if I can drive to town at a reasonable speed and actually get to town with full battery, then drive home full speed, I'm totally happy with that. I don't need to drive full speed both directions. Mostly I want to know that I can get home on the battery. Going out, I'm not worried. Going out, I'm fine going slow and chill and relaxing. It's the coming home that is the more risky thing, the more dangerous thing. Because if I'm going out, and if I'm going out and I go out slow, I know that I'm keeping the battery charged so that if there's a storm or whatever happens, I can turn around and hightail it back home. So I'm totally comfortable driving, doing a relaxing trip on the way there, just chilling, and then driving fast on the way home. Although the next time I drive fast on the way home, I think every 15 minutes I'll just check the motor. I think I fixed the heat thing. Well, I definitely fixed some of it. Anyway, I'm sure there was something else I was supposed to say there, but let me just check what's going on in comments here. Adam Savage has a tattoo of a ruler on his arm. You could do the same with a speed scale on your arm. Yeah, I don't think I'd want to get it tattooed on there. Although it would be useful because that will remain consistent for my entire life. Although I've got like lines on my hands and my arm, like I could just say, like I use this line here, this line right here. I put my hand in the water up to that line, and then I can see how high the water splashes up. And there's plenty of kind of markers on my hand and my arm that I could use to check. I've got some nice scars. That's cool though that he tattooed a ruler on his arm. Morning, fellas. Oh man, what if he gets fatter or skinnier or more saggy over time? His ruler's going to get messed up. No. No one around you has a cell phone with a GPS feature for a speed estimate. I'm sure I could get a. Well, actually, I do have a GPS thing. The battery in it is dead. It's like a car GPS thing. The battery in it's dead, so I'd have to take an external thing with me and plug it in, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, it's just not that important to me, so I haven't done it. But maybe at some point I'll get curious enough to take a GPS on the boat, get some speed readings compared to my hand, and then I'll have a better idea of the speed and blah, blah, blah. Tell them it's for weight distribution. Well, that's the other thing. So the battery is up in the front of the boat. All the rest of the weight is in the back. The motor's in the back. I'm in the back. Yeah, the boat was actually riding, aiming up a little. And now with the 50-pound battery up in the front, it's more leveled out, which is nice. So yeah, it just made, in terms of putting the battery in the front of the boat, it made sense in like 14 different ways and didn't make sense in one way. And the only way it didn't make sense was that the wires had to be longer to the motor. But I have a big, what's it called, stockpile of used wires, and I found some fat wires in there. They're actually fatter than they need to be, so it turned out fine. Then it's engineering. Yes, it's engineering. I put it in the right place. Hey guys, Tomater, how's it going, man? Guess I get to use this. Yes. I think your boat is so cool. Me too. I am so happy with that boat. It is so fun to drive. And I have to say, like one of the reasons it's so fun to drive is that I don't constantly have it in my head that the speed controller might die. Because like even before I had a speed controller die on me and leave me stranded a quarter mile from my house, so glad I was almost home at that point. Even before that happened, I was always aware that these black box speed controllers full of all kinds of stuff I can't do anything with. Like I can't open it up and repair it when I'm out in the water. They can die at any time, just like that. I really like having a boat where there is minimal stuff that can go wrong, and the stuff that can go wrong is stuff I can fix. Like the speed controller I have is just a coil of wire, nichrome wire. If at some point it broke or something, like say I don't know, for whatever reason, say Magic Fairies came and broke the wire, I could just twist it back together. Even with my bare hand, I could twist it back together. It's a pretty hard wire, but I could do it, and get it to work again. But electronic speed controller, and I'm always thinking in the back of my head, that thing gets too hot, or it can blow at any time. And I did have one of the expensive speed controllers in that boat before, and the only reasonable place to put it was right above the motor. So that meant the motor and the speed controller are both creating heat in the same compartment, which is, vented, but it's not like, it's not super vented. So now with just the motor back there, I like that more, particularly since I did just overheat the motor. Let's see. Oh, Shadowmancer. Well, thank you very much. Far from an idiot. Best example of practical intelligence I've seen. Actually, that brings up a good point. A lot of the decisions that I make on all these things I'm building, boats and buildings and all this different stuff, a lot of it is based on experiences. So everything I did on that boat, all the choices with how to connect the solar panels and what to do with the motor, and using the caveman speed controller instead of the fancy electronic one, and all this different stuff. A lot of that is based on experiences. I've been messing around with the stuff and using it and actually relying on it for pretty long time, and so I have a perspective of the experience of that. And a lot of the decisions that I make now, when I look back, would not have been the decisions I would have made when I originally started doing the stuff, before I had experiences. So I do understand when people say, just run all the solar panels through the charge controller and the battery, because that's the way everyone does it. That's the way you're supposed to do it, right? Well, yeah, except reality is different than on paper. And on paper, everything works perfectly. On paper, in your imagination, nothing breaks when you're 20 miles from home. You don't get stranded. Everything's perfect. Especially when you get to sit at home and just watch videos. You have no skin in the game. You have no real experience, no skin in the game. So you can sit there and say, I know what you should do. You should do the standardized, correct thing that everyone does, because that's the right way to do it. That's the proper thing. And I found a lot of times that the proper thing, is not the best thing. It does not work the best. Now, okay, while I'm on this, I wasn't planning to make this long, but I do keep getting messages. This has been going on forever, but I get a lot of messages from people who, they're so long too, such huge long messages, like people who have had disasters happen to them. So someone cut off his fingers and sends me this huge long message about how I'm going to cut off my fingers. Someone got stranded in a boat, so he explains to me how I'm going to get stranded in a boat. And so everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people have their own little disaster stories. And because you've had a disaster does not mean everyone else is going to have the same disaster. It also doesn't mean that it can't happen to anyone. Like, shit can happen, Oh, I'm not supposed to swear on this channel. This is my not swearing channel. Stuff can happen. Anyway, here's the thing. If I listened to everyone who told me about losing my hearing, losing my sight, cutting off my fingers, breaking my leg, breaking my back, getting stranded, in various ways, having a boat explode, having a house collapse on me, there's all these people who've had these experiences. If I listened to all that and said, I better not do any of that stuff, I wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't be possible to do anything. Like, life is risky. There's, you have to analyze the risks and do what you can to mitigate them, but there's no way to get rid of the risks. And a lot of times, safety equipment doesn't actually make you any safer either. And I don't want to get in a big fight with OSHA or anything. Like, you have to decide for yourself, in my opinion. The final person whose responsibility it is you. Like, you have to figure out what's going to be safe for you and how you're not going to kill yourself. So a lot of people talk about safety squints, and a lot of people who do machining and stuff like that, they do safety squints, and I totally do safety squints. Now, if I have to look at something right up close, I'll wear the whole face shield, although that does obscure vision to some degree. and it gets in the way and it's annoying and stuff. Most of the time, I feel safer without all that crap on me because it's a distraction. So most of the time, like if I'm angle grinding something and I can hold it in a direction where all the sparks are aiming away from me and not going toward my face, I can squint a little, keep my head back, and everything's like, I still have my eyes, I have all my fingers, I have all my toes. The only times I've actually been injured is when I've had a lapse of attention. I haven't paid attention. Those are the only times I've actually been injured. It's never been because I didn't have safety equipment or something like that. Now, I'm not going to talk about anyone else's experience, but for me, as long as I'm paying attention, that is the most important piece of safety equipment for me. None of all that other safety equipment matters, unless, you know, it's a situation where I figure it does matter. For instance, like I was just saying, like if I'm angle grinding something right up close, or if I'm hammering something and I have to look at it, you know, then pieces might chip off or something like that. And you know, when things are loud, I'll put on the ear blockers. But like a lot of times when I'm doing fiberglass, I don't wear gloves. And you know, you're supposed to wear gloves because if you're not wearing gloves, you get it all over yourself and it's terrible and toxic and blah blah blah. But the thing is, if I'm using bare hands, I have better dexterity. So as long as I'm doing something not too complicated, I can do the fiberglass thing without getting anything on my hands. Like I can just do it very carefully and use the dexterity I have of my hands, where if I was using gloves, I wouldn't be able to do it that well and I would get it on myself. So, you know, it's all like safety is not safety equipment. Safety is figuring out what you need to do to be safe. That is the actual goal. It's not like having the safety equipment, because people can have the safety equipment and still get hurt. The actual goal is to not get hurt, right? So do whatever you got to do for that. All right, I think your boat is cool. Yeah, I do too. How's it going, Tomaters? You need one battery for destination and an equivalent battery for return. This way, you never go too far to get home. Well, but like I said, the boat's only so big. Battery's not cheap. I don't want to be like switching over from battery to battery. Like I would rather go out slow, just chill, and then come home with a full battery and know that I can make it home on the battery. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put an extra battery on the boat because it's going to be extra weight, extra expense. Like someone mentioned in the comments that I don't have like, you know, millions of dollars or something. I'm comfortable, but like financially comfortable, but not because I make a lot of money. I'm financially comfortable because I don't spend a lot of money. Like no rent, no electrical, water bills, any of that stuff. That's why I'm financially comfortable, not because I have like, you know, piles of money to spend on stuff. And if you look at the views of my videos, I'm not making that much money off this stuff. So, yeah, I can't just go buy another battery and slap it in there. Oh, let's see. Mr. Landfill and Tomaters. It's always good to see you guys. Hey, Jaimie, could you add a switch to connect all your panels to the charge controller for when you are parked in town? You would get more charge. I did just answer this a little bit ago. When I'm parked in town, the front of the boat's always in shade because I park at this dock and there's just shade in the front. And no, I'd rather just get there with a full battery. And I don't want to add extra switches to the boat. You know, I like keeping it simple. So, I mean, yeah, it would give me a bit of extra stuff, but the thing is, like, there are like 100 different things I could do to give myself a minor. What is this right here? What is this? Yeah, you right there. Just make sure no naked kids run in here right now. Does everyone have clothes on? She just had clothes on. It's so funny having kids. Like, they'll be clothed 1 second, and then poof, it's like their clothes just explode off them. Yes, the older kids are always wearing clothes. Anyway, yeah, there are like 100 different things I could do to a boat or to any machine or whatever. But I have to decide. I always have to weigh like what's going to be worth it. because it would be really easy to add one switch and then another switch, and then I've got this panel of 47 different switches that do all these different things, and like 6 different amp meters and voltage meters, and just all this extra stuff, you know, that I don't need. So I just think about what's really going to matter. So I mean, if it was your boat and you were doing it, then you'd probably have different ideas about it than I do. Because you're a different person than I am, you're working with different parameters, and that's another reason. Another one of the things that I take into account when I'm building all this stuff. Like, I'm building it for me to use. So in the little white boat, for example, I am totally happy paddling and using a little bit of energy on the way to town and letting the batteries charge, because I like getting exercise. Ooh, that actually reminds me of another bunch of comments there was something about. Yeah, I want to spend an hour and a half of that trip paddling and then doing a bit of rest and then paddling more, because I like getting exercise. I want to stay in shape. I don't want to be in a machine. Like, it makes me feel terrible to be in a machine that's just doing stuff for me. I feel like, what is the point of me even being here? I don't want. I made a video about this recently. I don't want to be made obsolete by machines. It's just I don't know. Okay, one thing that's on my little list of things here that someone mentioned, a bunch of people mentioned, was pedals. So I took the pedals out of that boat for a few reasons. One, when I felt like at the top speed, even if I was pedaling pretty hard, I don't think the pedal power was even keeping up with the boat. Like, I think it was slowing it down. And then if I'm not pedaling, it's definitely slowing it down. And the pedals, you know, took up all the space in front of me because there were the pedals there, and I had to have all this leg space. So I removed the whole pedal system, and now I can fit an extra kid in. Like, I can fit an extra kid in the boat. Before I had to, you know, have one kid sitting up on the front of the boat, but now they all fit no problem, you know, and I can fit more groceries or whatever. So it definitely opens a bunch of space, which is one of the reasons I haven't put anything back in. Now, a few people have mentioned I could put a pedal system in with an alternator, like a little generator on it, and then I could pedal and actually charge the batteries, or run it straight to the motor, you know, whatever. Somehow get power out of pedaling. And I've definitely thought about that. However, I think I don't know, maybe I'll do that at some point. But right now, I'm really enjoying the extra space I have by not having any pedal system in there. And, you know, I like to get exercise. The paddle is totally fun. I need a paddle in the boat anyway. Like, you know, it's one of those important emergency items. Like, I have to have a paddle in the boat, because if everything else breaks, I can still paddle home. And that boat is pretty easy to paddle, actually. So I definitely want to have a paddle. And since the paddle's there anyway, I might as well just use the paddle for the exercise. So yeah, it takes up no extra space because it's there anyway. Although at some point in the future, I might do a pedal thing to a generator. That would be pretty cool. But, you know, like I said, it's not that big a boat. Thumbs up, everyone. Mr. Landfill's always giving everyone thumbs up. Oh, let's see. Complex systems equals high failure. Yes, that is. So one of the things that I've learned through a lot of real life experience is just the value of simplicity. So, you know, someone just mentioned, you know, putting one more switch into the boat would make it so I could charge faster in town. But just adding any more complexity to a machine, I heavily resist. So I need a really, really good reason to add more complexity to a machine. And the really, really good reason could be just that I really feel like it or whatever. But, you know, generally it's got to be something where it's going to give me some kind of benefit that is worth the extra complexity, even if it's just an extra switch. Like any extra complexity just adds points of failure. Ruggedness over efficiency. Yeah, I would personally take ruggedness over efficiency. Like, whenever I go to the store, I'm always looking around and I'm like, where's the stuff that's not going to break ever? Like, I would rather have a battery that's going to last 10,000 years that's 80% efficient, over a battery that's like 98% efficient and will last a few years. You know, like if there's, I would really totally rather have long-term solutions to things, even if it's not as good as the short-term solution. The thing is, it's going to end up being the better solution in the long term anyway, because every time you have to replace something, that's a whole bunch of wasted energy. Cute little helps, I have to say. That was a cute little helper. Hey, buddy, surprise. Been a while since I got it in on one of your live streams. Hey, Frederick, how's it going, man? Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while. Wow, thanks, Mr. Landfill. Perfect grocery, perfect grocery getter. Yeah, that boat is like the perfect grocery getter. The last trip I went to town where my camera ran out of space. I only have a 2 GB card in that camera because I switched. I have 2 different cameras. Here, let me show you my cameras. I normally can never show you my cameras because the camera is the camera. Can't show you the camera. So here's the super fancy stuff I've got. This I think I got for like, oh, come on, light. I have to block off some of this bright light behind me so the camera readjusts. So this is a Kodak Sport, I think it's called. Kodak Play Sport. And I got this for like 30 bucks. And a bunch of you guys recommended getting one of these when I was talking about needing a cheap camera that could get wet. So anytime I go on the boat and I'm doing video, I just use this thing because it is waterproof. It only costs 30 bucks. So, and actually for a while I was using one of these just for everything, but now that's just my boat camera. And then this is my other camera. Oh, block off some light. It's I guess this thing. It's a Coolpix AW120. Just a camera. And when I switched to using this camera, I had an 8 GB card, so I put that in this camera so that my other camera just has a 2 GB, which is, I mean, it'll do like 20 minutes of video. It's plenty for most things. But yeah, I ran out of camera on the boat the other day, so I didn't get the trip home. The trip home was great up until the motor got too hot. Although, you know, whatever. But I was going full speed most of the way. Still had plenty of energy to get all the way home. That was pretty cool. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, groceries. I went to get groceries. And yeah, I can fit a lot of groceries in that boat. It is the perfect grocery getter. Yeah, you're right. And like I can fit groceries in the boat and, you know, a bit of other stuff. If I went to get cement in that boat, I wouldn't want to get more than 2 bags. I mean, I've put like 600 pounds in that boat before, but I wouldn't say it was comfortable. I was nervous the whole way home when I had that much weight in the boat because the boat was so low, like any waves came right in. I did a lot of bailing out on that trip. Have you experimented with anti-fouling paint? I have not. I was wondering if you mix copper grinding dust in your paint. Copper plating was used on wooden ships for that purpose. Yeah, so I personally haven't done it, but I've heard from other people that, yeah, you know, you mix copper into the resin, like copper dust into the resin, you paint your bottom of the boat and then sand it so the copper is exposed to the water, and that will keep stuff from growing on your boat. It is also toxic to marine life, which is why things don't grow on the boat. And then, yeah, bottom paint for boats is generally not good for the environment. It's not good for the ocean. And once I found out about that, I was like, all right, I'm just not going to use it. So the little white boat that I'm responding to the comments about, that one I just pull out of the water because it's a pretty small boat. I can pull it out of the water pretty easily. So it resides out of the water. So it doesn't need any bottom paint or anything. My bigger boat is always in the water, and I just scrub it off every now and then. Before, like when I was building my house, I was using the boat every day, and every day I would jump in the water with a brush and just brush the bottom, and it would stay perfectly clean. It seems that parked in my canal inside the island, like in the island, I've got a canal that comes in, and there's, you know, I guess it's like a little tiny lagoon, and it has a muddy bottom, which isn't that pleasant to get into because every once in a while I have to get in it and, you know, push a boat or something if the tide's really low. But I think the muddy bottom prevents barnacles from growing in there. I don't know, whatever it is, I don't really get barnacles when my boat is parked in here, like in the water, or they grow really slow. So I only have to clean off the bottom of the boat like every couple weeks. And by cleaning it off, I just mean like scrub it with a brush. And I might find the odd little tiny barnacle I can just pick off with my fingernail. But the barnacles seem to grow really slowly in my little lagoon here compared to being parked out in the ocean somewhere, because I've experienced both. But yeah, I just jump in the water and scrub off the boat every once in a while. No anti-fouling. Heat sink around motor. Water flowing around heat sink increases flow with speed. Oh man, I don't want to do all that. I was thinking about that obviously, but so basically use water to keep the motor cool. It's just a whole bunch of, it's more complication, you know. The motor does have a fan on it, which blows from the back. And I was thinking of putting a little fan right on the connection between the motor shaft and the propeller shaft, because that was the area that got really hot. And I think it was because my connection was loose. And I was meaning to fix this before I did a trip, but I was like, it seems like it's all right, and then just did it, you know. But it was a little bit wobbly, so I'm guessing that, you know, I was driving full speed for an hour. It was just wobbling, just like a 0.5 millimeter back and forth. I don't know, like 400 times a second or something. Not that much, but I mean, I don't know. What's the RPMs on that motor? 1,800 RPMs, 1,800 times per minute. I don't know, 1,000 times per minute, whatever. The thing's wobbling back and forth a tiny amount, and I think that's what built up that heat. And it took like an hour for it to become a problem. So it was like just a slow buildup of heat. And I'm thinking if I put a little fan there, it'll help, you know, get rid of the heat. Which, you know, if it takes an hour before it overheats, over an hour, it should be pretty easy to get rid of that heat, right? So if we put a little fan there, it should be all right. Although I did also put some shims in there, so now it fits tight, snug, so it doesn't wobble back and forth anymore. And I also put a bit of grease in there, so that if, you know, any bit of wobbling isn't going to create as much heat, it'll be, you know, lubricated. Let's see, would be nice to have quality estimates for how much charging you get per hour in town. Well, the thing about that is it's going to depend a lot on the time of day, the clouds, and the time of day, because like I'm not parked out in the water. I'm parked next to stuff. So sometimes the sun is going to be blocked depending on where the sun is, you know. And that's what I was saying about the front of the boat gets a lot more shade than the back of the boat. So the back of the boat charges the batteries. So the front of the boat, I basically write off whenever I'm parked, because it's the front of the boat's basically going to get no sun. Have you seen the toroidal propeller designs? I have. That's another thing of complication. So I looked into those a little bit, keeping in mind how this stuff usually goes, and it seemed to go basically how I thought it would. You know, I click on some video. You know, there's tons of videos. They're all like 105% increase in efficiency, not 105% of the efficiency, 105% increase, like double the efficiency. And I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, is a propeller normally below 50% efficiency? To get that much increase, the propeller needs to be like 40% efficient to double it up to more than double it, up to like 80 or 90%, right? That sounds like BS. And sure enough, you know, I click on the video and it's like, well, at certain speeds, at really specific conditions, it's significantly more efficient. You know, at the propeller's least efficient conditions. And yeah, it ended up not being that much of an increase in efficiency. I'll check that out. All right, let me get off this in a minute, and I'll come check that out. I don't know. And the other thing is they're going to collect leaves and grass, because it's like a big loop. Once a piece of grass gets stuck in there, oh, Like one of the things I always do with my propellers is I try to make them weedless, so the propeller blade is kind of in a shape where as it's turning, any leaves or grass that gets caught on it is going to kind of fall off the end and actually come off. But yeah, one of those toroidal propellers, if you run through some weeds, which happens sometimes, like sometimes I'm just driving along and there's just like suddenly there's just like a field of like weeds and grass and stuff just floating on the water, and I'll try to weave through, but I'm gonna get some stuck on the boat. If it gets stuck on the pontoons, I just rock the boat back and forth and it kind of gets them off. But the propeller, occasionally I have to stop and then start going again. But almost always it just falls off. But a toroidal propeller, if you get that thing, that loop, and there's like a weed stuck right through there, I have to get off the boat, swim back there, and then pull it out, and then I can go. That would be kind of a pain in the butt and not worth it. However, I don't know, if it's enough of an increase in efficiency, I might think about getting one. But they're also just complicated to make and get and blah, blah, blah. All right. For a cooling system, if you use pipe facing down, all right, it's just going to be too complicated. I don't want a water-cooled motor. Yeah. Okay, so if I use a pipe facing forward in the water, it's going to get clogged up a lot. Okay, so then I put a screen on it and then, keep the clogs out. But the screen's still going to get clogged up by other stuff. Water is going to cause drag and slow the boat down. Like all this, it's just too complicated. It's going to have problems and it'll slow the boat down. So I'd rather, since it took over an hour to overheat this motor, I think just a couple little propeller blades by the connection will blow any extra heat off. Although I did also fix what I think was the problem, which was just this loose connection that was wobbling back and forth. So until I really test that again, I don't know if there actually is still a problem. Skin sags as we age. Oh, no, it doesn't, man. I think you could actually make it, wait. All right, Frederick, what are you talking about? I think you could actually make it both ways on that system at full speed, maybe just for starters. Try carrying a smaller charged up battery with you for the first few trips, maybe just for testing. Frederick, do you think I just have another $650 battery just like hanging around? Where do you think I get this stuff? But however, remember that in a few months, years, the batteries might start losing some total capacity. That's true. For your amp meter you used before, you can use a voltage divider on the signal wires to ×2 the amp meter range, so it'll be 100 amps versus 50 amps. Well, I don't want to. I think you're telling me how to make it test up to 100 amps. Well, I don't actually want the thing to go over 50 amps, so I want it to be under 50 amps. So I'd rather fix it so it's under 50 amps. And then, use the thing. I do have an amp meter that's 200 amps. So if I need a higher thing, I can use that. Came off some, I don't know, all the stuff I got out of the garbage somewhere, Okay, how did you make it that last quarter of the way home when it overheated? Okay, so the motor overheated. I don't know how long I spent, 15 minutes, like with a little piece of cloth and a piece of water, just putting it on different parts of the motor, cooling it off. Kind of investigating. I was probably there for like half an hour, and I did a little bit of paddling to make it part of the way back. But then at some point, I was probably there for like half an hour, kind of chilling and investigating and paddling a little. But eventually I was like, all right, I got to see if this motor is broken or if it's fine. So I put the motor on low speed and just drove the rest of the way on that, and it was fine. And I tested high speed a little bit, just to see that the motor was still working, still driving the boat fast, but I didn't want to leave it on that. I just did it for a few seconds. But yeah, I just drove slow speed the rest of the way. Although I could have paddled. I definitely could have paddled. I wasn't like screwed at any point. If you have a clear plastic tube, you can make a plastic pilot tube and secure. Is this another thing? Post to your boat. Easy to implement, just take some time to calibrate. Okay, I don't want an extra thing. I don't want all this extra stuff to take on the boat. I just don't want extra stuff on the boat. Are you worried about the motor drawing more amps than the panels can put out, melting the wire or something like that? No, that doesn't make sense. Okay, so this brings up a weird thing about electronics, like electrical things that I never understood why people do it this way. Okay, am I worried about the motor drawing more amps than the panels can put out? So people talk about how equipment draws power from the power source, like a motor is drawing the power or a computer is drawing the power. That never made sense to me because the motor is not sucking energy out of the solar panels or out of the batteries or anything. If that was the case, you could just short circuit the motor and it would run all day on its own. It is the power source is pushing the electricity in. The motor is actually resisting. It's not drawing the power. It is slowing down the power. Like if you took a battery and you short circuited it with a wire, that's going to make the electricity go as fast as that power supply can make it go, minus a tiny bit of resistance. So you put a motor in there, it's actually slowing down the electricity. So if I have solar panels and they can output 10 amps, the motor can't actually draw more than 10 amps from the solar panels because it is not drawing the power, it is resisting. All this stuff has resistance. It's resisting the energy flow. So the power source, you can't get more energy out of the power source than the power source can supply. So yeah, that's not a problem. Shit happens. CHIT. How many members are in here? Tomaters is asking. You need a large bungee cord tied to your island. Use the electric motor to go to town, and the island pull you back. That's totally right. You're absolutely right. Big bungee cord. Do we have a big bungee cord that will reach like all the way to town?
No.
Come on, you could. As I'm weaving through the islands, it can just like draw a line all the way there, and then I can park the boat. I got to have power going the whole way. But as soon as I park the boat, I got to tie it up real good. And then as soon as I'm ready to come home, I just, pull that last knot out and that elastic rubber band can be like, you go like 40 miles an hour. My hat can get blown off and just be like a cheetah running through the water. Whoa, bah, 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 bah. That sounds like a great idea, doesn't it?
Yes.
I'm sure he was joking. That would I bet that's something the coyote would do. These guys have been watching Looney Tunes lately, which is hilarious, isn't it? It's funny because, when I was a kid, Looney Tunes. Everyone here is old, right? You're all a bunch of old farts mostly. We all watched Looney Tunes when we were kids, and then today Looney Tunes is supposed to be not cool and boring. That's old stuff, right? Man, these guys freaking love Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny and the Tasmanian Devil. And the Roadrunner. Oh, it started with the Roadrunner because I was talking about cheetahs and roadrunners, and I started talking about the Roadrunner show, and they're like, I want to see that. And oh my gosh, they were cracking up like crazy. They did some great gags on the Roadrunner. Anyway, yeah, I could get the coyote to order me an Acme bungee cord for that. Let's see. Frank says, oh, okay. So I guess it came up because I gave my son his birthday present in a box, and I wrote Acme on it. He's like, Acme, what's that? And then I had to show him because the coyote always ordered those sets of like magnetic shoes or bungee cords or catapults in an Acme box. Suction cups on his shoes, whatever. All right. Jaimie, love your builds and your ideas. Do you have an estimate for the amount of current coming from the battery on low speed versus full speed? Okay, my last measurement for that, and I haven't done it since I've improved a few efficient things. I hope I did anyway. But my last measurements were 18 amps and 26 amps for the two lower speeds, and then like 49 for the full speed. 18, 26, and 49. And when I first got everything on the boat, what was it, like 30 and 40 and like 80 or something. But then I messed around with the propeller, did a bunch of stuff. So yeah, right now, as far as I know, I've got it I've got it down to 18 amps, 26 amps, and 49 amps, and it's a 24-volt system. Although I've done a few things to improve the efficiency since then, so I'm hoping it's a little bit lower, but I haven't actually confirmed that. Hi, Jaimie. Been following you since you made your giant spider robot. Oh, I can't wait to make a new giant robot. I want to get a 3D printer and start making I think I want to make a couple different prototypes, and like really get the design worked out before I make the next giant robot. Always great to hear what you have to say and seeing you make your dreams come true. Props. Well, thanks, man. Neodos. The Matt Hatter. The Hobie drop-in kayak pedals. Oh, the Hobie drop-in kayak pedals are awesome. They're on second or third generation, but lots of failure points. Yeah, I actually got to drive one of those one time. I was visiting. It was actually like a YouTube fan guy in Florida. I went to visit him, and he's like, "You want to go to the beach? I got my Hobie kayak," and he had the trimaran Hobie kayak with the sail and the pedals. It was pretty sweet. But yeah, I was looking at the Hobie kayak pedals is like two push things, and then there's two fins under that go like this. And I could see some cracking and stuff under there. They were still at the point of totally working, but it wasn't the design I wanted to copy, I would be interested in hearing someone else's experience, like long-term experience with those. So I think, okay, Robert says, I think energy-wise, you would get more direct benefit paddling versus pedaling an alternator. Well, yeah. From what I understand, most alternators are 70% efficient at best, then add wiring and salt water buildup. So yeah, if I put in pedals with a generator on it, it's definitely not going to be as efficient as paddling. The cool thing about it would be that I could charge the batteries if I'm parked somewhere. So like say I'm camping or something, and for some reason this is going to be, I'm going to have to come up with some really convoluted, weird situation where it would be that useful. So never mind. But yeah, I mean, it would be cool. There was a lurker behind you. Yeah. Now there's two of them. Hi, all. Thanks, Mr. L, for my greenness. Okay. Nalis Solis says, hi, folks. Thanks for the gifted membership. Let's see. I thought you have 6 panels on it. Only 4 makes sense. You won't drive on all 4. Yeah, I did have 5 solar panels on that boat for a while before I switched to the battery. And it was a little bit cumbersome. It was worth it when I didn't have the battery. But now that I have the battery on it, it was worth it to go back down to 4, just because it's not so cumbersome, Because sometimes the wind gets real strong, and with 5 solar panels, it was really pushing on it. And since it's flexible, I'd have to hold it to make sure it wasn't getting blown around too much. What's that?
I say cucumbersome.
Cumbersome. Yes, it's cucumbersome. Hokey pokey or the chicken dance. I don't know. Look up a belt drive for it, and then remove the belt when you want to use solar instead of pedal. Way less wear. I don't know. Are you talking about like for a pedal drive? I don't know. Anyway, change the shroud around the motor or make one to divert the cool air to it. Oh, it has a shroud around it that I'm presuming they've made this pretty efficient. Like that blows air over the motor, but it blows it from the back to the front. And the point where I was creating extra unneeded heat was at the front, so it wasn't really getting that. But like I said, hopefully I fixed that. Very easy to pop on and off a belt. Yes. Say hi to your kids. You got that?
A beat.
Apparently, fewer blades equals more efficient. More blades equals quieter. So a toroidal might be good compromise between noise and efficient. More blades is probably also more power. So yeah, if you have 2 propeller blades, it tends to vibrate a lot more easily. So I've been putting 3 propeller blades on pretty much all my stuff, which is, I don't know, I don't think it's much less efficient. I think it's pretty close. I did one time make a propeller. Wait, let me think. Oh, that was a two-bladed propeller, but it had like, it was two propeller blades that were like a big coil, and that ran so smooth. I do keep thinking about designing a propeller that's just one propeller blade that runs like coils all the way around. So I'd have to do it pretty. I'd have to get the design pretty perfect for it to actually be balanced with just one propeller blade. But you know, it can be done. And yeah, it'd be cool to see how efficient that actually is. I haven't seen anyone doing that. I kind of wish someone would do that and make a video about it on YouTube. Although, a lot of times YouTube people, someone sent me a video recently about this guy testing toroidal propellers. It was like half an hour video, and he had all this stuff measuring like RPMs and speed and energy usage, and he even had bubbles blowing into the motor to check the what was going on around the propeller, vortices and stuff, and all this stuff. And then he gets to the end of the thing, and he's like, well, I made the toroidal propeller a totally different pitch than the propeller I was comparing it to. And I was like, so the entire thing was worthless, you know? And this is the problem when you've got like people who are just doing stuff. You know, most people are not, they're not taking into account the important pieces of information. Water cool it. No, I'm not water cooling it. Air cooled. Yeah. Most efficient propellers are very large surface area blades and move slowly. Yeah. The bigger propellers are more efficient and run slower. To have a slower turning thing on that boat, I'd have to add gears, which would add complexity and, you know, take up some efficiency in the gears because they'd have some friction. Plus, there's a certain amount of space where I can put the propeller. I could definitely have it some bigger, but there's a limit. It's not that big before it starts hitting like the rudder and the boat, stuff like that. And that's actually another one of the reasons I took off the pedal power, because the pedal power propeller was out at the bottom of the boat, which really limited the size of the propeller. And it would have been a lot more efficient if I could have used a bigger propeller. And I could have, but that would make it stick farther down in the water, which means I'm going to be hitting the bottom more often. So anyway, would be cool to do some kids creation videos. Have them inspire city kids to create. Hey, do we need to do some videos of you guys making stuff? You guys always help me make stuff. You guys make your own stuff too. How are the crops doing? Man, crops. People keep asking me about this gardening thing. Oh my gosh, it takes so long to do gardening. Like you do something, then you have to wait like a year to see if it actually worked. Crops are increasing. I've been planting a lot of yucca. In one of the videos recently, I showed this area of like loose dirt that I just kind of filled in and like put there. And it was all clay, but it was broken up and loose because I'd moved it. So I've been planting a lot of yucca, which is like a potato-y kind of thing. And they're growing, they're getting leaves, they're growing, they're doing the thing. I also planted some yam pea and some sweet potatoes, and all that stuff's growing well. I also have some watermelon.
Did you plant the ginger while you were
I did not plant the ginger. We need to do that today, I think. Yeah. But yeah, things seem to be growing. Maybe you can make, I have two huge things of bananas on my trees right now. One that's almost ready, and then one that's like, I don't know, a little bit behind that, like a month behind that. And then I also have two trees with white plantains on them. So the banana and plantain trees are going really well.
like tea party.
You just let me pick your nose.
Okay.
Let's see. Maybe you can make water cooling stuff using cement or something to avoid the rust problem with salt water. I definitely don't want to add cementy things to the boat. I'm the Lubis says, I'm the Star Trek little girl that spoke with you in a thought experiment on Austin. Hope you're doing well. Oh, wait. In a thought experiment. That was the what's it called? The podcast I did a few weeks ago. Yeah, I want to go on there again at some point. Well, you should send me an email and say hi. I wonder how those guys are doing. I kind of wanted to go. Oh, hold on. Hey. All right, these guys are starting to get loud. I'm gonna have to take off in a minute. Yeah, send me an email and let me know how everything's going. Right, Austin was the guy's name. I couldn't even remember his name. I just remember
I'm just trying to
his YouTube name or whatever. Anyway, I want to go back on that podcast at some point because he said I can go back and chime in anytime. I'm always busy in the mornings. How many people gave a thumbs up to help the channel? Hold on. All right, you little buggers, get your butts out of here and shut up. You're being quiet. You can stay. Gotta throw down with these kids sometimes. Let's see. I like the smaller boat better than the big one you built. It is so cool. If I had to choose one to drive, the smaller boat's so fun to drive. However, the big boat, so useful. Like if I have to carry anything, or even just like a lot of people, I can fit 2 adults comfortably in the little boat. It's kind of like a motorcycle. I mean, sort of like a stretch motorcycle, really fun to drive, but there's no space in it. But yeah, the other boat is really useful, has lots of space. Anyway, maybe just stick a thermometer or some sort near your motor so you can easily glance over and see if it's overheating or not while you test different methods of keeping it cool. It would actually be kind of cool to have a thermometer or something I can use to test the temperature when I do different things. Although I don't think it's going to be that much of a problem. Like I think I fixed the main problem, which was that one connection that was vibrating, which was I knew it was loose. I knew it was a problem. I just did it anyway, like I was planning to fix it anyway. Anyway, it's hopefully fixed now. And I'll probably put a couple little propeller blades on there just to blow the air around, just in case. Let's see. Oh, Luba says, you girls are going to be the most able with their hands and skilled. Then most boys when they grow up. You guys are going to be more skilled than most of the boys. Most people in general don't do anything. It's like, it's so disappointing to see people growing up with the tablets and phones, and that's all they use. And it's terrible. Like we're wasting so much human potential. I've got all these people concerned that I'm wasting energy on my boat. How about human potential? Oh my gosh, so much is being wasted. People are amazing if you just try to be and let them be. That's the thing. Like a lot of human potential comes out when you just let kids be curious and get interested in things instead of stuffing them in these schools where it's like being in prison and there's force fed all this propaganda all the time. Don't get me going on schools. We'll never hear the end of it. Frederick says, dude, your kids are so genuinely happy and fun. Are you genuinely happy and fun? You better be. That's because I beat them. Anytime they complain, I give them severe beatings. Do you get severe beatings whenever you complain?
Inside out hat. Hey, you look at that.
Yeah, severe beatings whenever they complain. So if my kids don't smile enough, I electrocute them. I electric shock them and stuff. I'm looking forward to your next robot too. Yeah, me too, man. You should buy them some virtual toys. This way they'll be virtually happy like everybody else's kids. Yeah, no kidding, man. God, this is all this virtual stuff. Like I get it. Video games are fun. I've been playing a lot of video games this week, actually, just because I was under a lot of stress and I was like, I'm gonna play some video games. But yeah, at some point you got to be like, okay, real life is where it really is. That's the stuff I really need to deal with. Real life is the real important stuff. A mechanical whale tail on the back of your boat would be cool. I actually did make a fish tail on a boat years ago. There's video of it somewhere, but it was one that I hand cranked and it worked pretty well. It's just, propellers work because motors spin around. Like that's why propellers are so good. My pops was an industrial mechanic. He used to engrave Acme ink into pretty much everything he fabricated. Big fan of Acme here. That's awesome. Goofy kids. I do have goofy kids. Hello, Lubas. Welcome to support. That's Tomater's doing stuff, I think. The coil propellers you mentioned remind me of the impellers they use in jet drives. It's not one single prop, but the concept is similar. However, it needs to be enclosed in a tunnel also. Interesting. Also, more surface area equals more drag, less efficiency. Right, yeah. Any Dragon Scales updates? No, I haven't done anything on the Dragon Scale. So my roof, I've been putting tiles on the roof that I call the Dragon Scales because they're just like big giant tiles, like big scales. And I imagine the only thing that big with scales would be a dragon. But I haven't worked on it in a while, partly because there just aren't that many leaks, so it's not. What's the word? If my roof was leaking more, I would be more on it. But also, I need specific weather, you know, and it's been raining a lot. It's been either like, hey, it's either been really sunny or really rainy, which is not good for concrete. Let's see. How can I send you stuff? Well, if you want to send me something, hold on, I just fixed my thing. If you want to send me something, send me an email, which is down here. It's not that complicated to email me or to send me something, I mean. But it's not like I can just give you an address. Like I have to know what it is, and then there's a shipper who imports stuff to Panama, and they have to have a list of everything that's in it. So just because they're importing stuff and blah blah blah. I also have an Amazon wish list though down in the comments. You can send me anything off that. That would be amazing. But yeah, if you have something you want to send me, send me an email. My email should be down in the comments. theadventurebuildermovie@gmail.com, which was originally just an email for movie questions, but now I just use it for everything. The beatings will continue until morale improves. That's right. Where is that from? The beatings will continue until morale improves. Insert final credits here. The end. Papa. Is the wood mill on strike or no logs to work on? I currently have no logs. I need to get some logs. But yeah, it's just there's one me and there's a lot of stuff to do. And this, I don't want to get into this, but this week I dealt with someone's significant emotional problems, and it got in the way of a lot of progress this week. But I think we basically got it worked out, so I can get back on things. But yeah, I have to get some logs. I do actually have a couple trees, like just near my house, that are dead or dying. Like termites got to them, but I think there's enough. I think most of the tree is intact, so I might cut those down and cut those up. But I don't know what kind of wood it is. Seems like I don't know. It's wood. You can definitely cut those up. But to start making boards for the second and third floor, what are you doing to me? I'm gonna have to know what that wood is before I start doing it. So, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up. I wasn't meaning to go on this long, but of course, you guys were super cool, so I had to talk to you. Now, always remember, whenever you want to call someone an idiot, make sure you don't follow that up with something really stupid that you're saying yourself, because then they're not going to believe you. Your dad's shirt is all messy. My dad's shirt is all messy. So this is actually the shirt I was wearing when the motor overheated, and the front of my shirt, I don't know if you can see, here, let me hold it up against the light. Yeah, it's got like holes and it's kind of falling apart. So there's a chunk in the front of my shirt here I just ripped off, got it wet and laid it on the motor to help cool it off. All right, I think that's it. Can someone push the X hang up on me? And push the OK. Can you tell which letters are O and K?